If you're taking the LSAT in October, you're in a better position than almost anyone over the past 30 years because you don't have to study logic games. You can instead double your focus on logical reasoning. Today, I'll share with you why this is a massive opportunity if you're taking the LSAT this fall and how you can leverage it to get a top score. For those who don't know me, my name is Steve Schwartz. I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005, and I personally increased my LSAT score from a 152 to a 175. Now, of course, back when I took the LSAT, logic games were on the test. I could have gotten my score increase much more easily and much faster if logic games hadn't been on the test, because I would have done what I'm going to recommend you do, which is I could have doubled my focus on logical reasoning, since it is now 2/3 of the test. LSAC has removed the logic game section entirely and replaced it with a second scored logical reasoning section. This means there's less material for you to study, and you can get way better at logical reasoning because you can double your focus there. You can narrow your focus. There are roughly 15 different types of logical reasoning questions, which may sound like a lot until you realize that some of them are way more common than others. For example, necessary assumption, inference, and flaw show up far more often than evaluate the argument, cannot be true, or must be false. And even annoying questions like parallel reasoning are only showing up maybe once or twice per section, so you shouldn't give them extra focus just because they seem tougher. Every question on the LSAT is worth the same. They're all worth one raw score point. But if there are 10 necessary assumption questions on the test across the two logical reasoning sections, it's far more important that you understand the difference, for example, between necessary assumption and sufficient assumption than it is for you to be really great at parallel reasoning questions. Of course, if you want a top score, you want to understand how to do all types of questions. I would never recommend neglecting any single type of logical reasoning question. If you're looking for a top score like 170, 175, of course, at LSAT Unplugged, we'll walk you through all those 15 or so different types of logical reasoning questions. But when you're just getting started, it's far more beneficial for you to focus on the lowest hanging fruit to begin with. And we often find within a single class or a single coaching session, we can help students correct some major misconceptions about things like, for example, necessary assumption versus sufficient assumption, or flaw versus weaken, or must be true versus most strongly supported questions. So now that logical reasoning is 2/3 of the test, you want to make sure that you are crystal clear on the biggest types of logical reasoning questions and that you're drilling these by type before doing timed exam after timed exam. If you're taking the LSAT in October and you've got several weeks between now and then, you may want to devote the initial period, the next couple of weeks, to drilling questions by type, then devoting the next few weeks to doing individual timed sections to work on your pacing, and finally pull it all together with full-length timed practice tests. I'm going to recommend that ideally you do at least one timed exam per week, along with detailed review of that exam, because you want to have enough practice tests under your belt in strict timed conditions so that test day itself will feel like just another run through. Now, if you are not sure how to allocate your time, if you don't have a day-by-day study plan, I recommend you get one, because you don't want to leave your LSAT prep to chance based on your emotions or how you're feeling that day. You want to have a structured plan of attack with accountability built in, which is why at LSAT Unplugged, we create personalized day-by-day study plans for all of our students, whether you're taking the LSAT in September, October, November, or beyond. If you're interested in finding out more, you could check out the links below this video to book a call with me and my team. We'd be glad to help you out. Of course, wherever you're at in your prep, you don't want to neglect review, which is too often left out. You don't want to take exam after exam and measure yourself, be happy or sad about your results, then move on to the next. You want to slow down and learn from your mistakes so that you can avoid repeating them going forward. It's far too easy to look at the answer key and say, oh, I get it now. How could I have been so dumb? Or you Google for an explanation, which is some tutor's so-called perfect way of solving the question that would never actually work on test day itself, or is created with the hindsight of already knowing the correct answer. You want the process ideally personalized for you, which is why I advocate using the Socratic review method, a framework, a guideline to help you figure out where your misunderstandings are coming from initially. Maybe it was in the stimulus, maybe it was in the question stem, or maybe it was in the answer choices, tempting wrong answers, unappealing right answers. You want to understand the patterns in how you're thinking about the test, because the LSAT, first and foremost, is a test of pattern recognition. How quickly can you identify the method of reasoning in the stimulus or the tricks and traps that LSAT is laying for unsuspecting test takers? So it's better to take fewer exams and review them in more depth than to only scratch the surface. Again, link below to find out more and book a call. We'd be glad to help. And in the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.